outside of emergency management was making sure people were fed. And so that was a critical priority. And so out of that 50 million that was allocated, two programs were really born from that out of necessity. One of those being the Fresh Food Financing Initiative COVID Relief Fund, and the other being the Dairy Indemnity Program, which we'll hit on today. So roughly $10 million was put toward the Fresh Food Financing Initiative COVID Relief Fund, which was a program that was actually started some years ago. The Fresh Food Financing Initiative itself was a very successful program, and it mainly focused on increasing access to grocery stores and to getting fresh foods in areas of food deserts, and of course where populations had no access to fresh foods. And so we were able to expand that program and expand the goals of the program during the pandemic to provide grant support to all food retailing businesses that were impacted by COVID. And again, this was to really ensure that amidst the pandemic, communities could continue to maintain healthy food access. And that continued to be a priority of the Secretary and, of course, the department. Another important facet about the Fresh Food Financing Initiative COVID Relief Fund was that it recognized the disproportionate impacts of both COVID and food apartheid on communities made up of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, especially Black and African American communities. Prioritization was given to those businesses that were owned and served low-income communities. So it was very specific and geared toward those areas of the state. And so we were happy to see that the program was oversubscribed substantially. There was roughly about 115 projects in 39 counties that were funded. And of course, like all the programs that the department has supported over the past few years, we're of course looking for additional funding to have those programs expand in the future. And so just looking at Lancaster County, for some examples of what was funded, there was 4 projects actually funded in Lancaster County, totaling about $616,000 for the county. Some examples here, the Treasures of Hope Foundation, Treasures Markets received $450,000. Smucker's Meats, which we'll hear from actually later in the program this week, Breakaway Farms, Butcher Shop, and Devin Bartow, Fifth Month Farm CSA was also their projects funded. So again, it was a fairly successful program. We were really happy to see the kind of enthusiasm and outreach that we were able to provide for it, and we're looking to continue that in the future. So if you do have any questions on that, again, please feel free to ask. Outside of the Fresh Food Financing Initiative, there was an additional $15 million of the State CARES Act funding that was allocated toward the Dairy Indemnity Program. This program, as many of you that are in the dairy industry that are listening may know, the program just ended just recently. And, as we'll hear the Secretary talk about and has talked about, early in the pandemic, the dairy industry was in a complete free-for-all. And many in the industry, unfortunately, resorted to milk dumping. So this fund was specifically made available to those dairy farmers which experienced financial loss due to discarded or displaced milk between March 6th and September 30th. Farmers were initially provided up to $1,500 for losses, and those checks were and are in the mail. Many have received additional funds as the program was not initially oversubscribed, so there was additional funds remaining. So many farmers did receive an additional $1,500 if they had losses above that initial $1,500. And as additional funds are remaining, and this is ongoing right now, so I don't have all the details for you today because the program just closed, but once it's determined how much money is left in the fund, it'll be reallocated in a similar fashion out to those dairy farmers. And recently, they were efforts to include the co-ops, and will continue providing those funds out to the dairy industry. So just to close briefly here, Other than these two specific programs that were funded, the department really has continued to provide technical support out to the agriculture industry. We continue to reach out and connect with our stakeholders and our partners, and doing as much as we can to support everyone through this time. And so again, we encourage you to reach out to me and the other regional directors. And of course, the secretary wants to hear from you as well. And again, we're here to be an advocate for you as we get through this time.
Very good. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate you reviewing some of those programs. For everyone on the call or on the webinar today, we will be taking your questions and I encourage you to put those into the chat. We will try to cover some of those. We'll have a Q&A session after the four speakers have had a chance to share their program-related assistance. So again, just be sure to put your question in the chat so we can capture that and discuss it at the end. Up next will be Lisa Riggs. She's the Executive Director of the Lancaster County Economic Development Company and the point of the spear for our recovery efforts. And so I'll turn it over to Lisa now.
Great, thanks, Chris. Can you hear me okay, Chris?
You're good.
Terrific, thanks. And appreciate being a part of the program today. And Scott, appreciate the support of the Lancaster County Agricultural Council. And good luck with the rest of Ag Week activities. My role today is to speak about two programs, much of which are winding down at this point, but just to provide a little bit of backdrop, and there's still some work that we're in the process of doing. So there's two programs listed on the slide here, the Small Business Recovery and Sustainability Fund, and then also the COVID-19 supply kits. These are two of the signature programs that fell under the umbrella of Recovery Lancaster. Recovery Lancaster was an initiative that really kicked off in May of 2020, and it followed on the heels of a proposed recovery plan that was drafted by EDC and the Lancaster Chamber and then shared with the Board of Commissioners as we all figured out what was starting to happen in March and April, and had a sense at that time that while none of us knew how long it would take or what the impacts would be, that we were seeing profound changes to our local economy in the spring. We were heartened early on because the Board of Commissioners, and I believe Commissioner D'Agostino may be on the call today, were quick to provide considerable support to the Recovery Lancaster effort. In total, it was just over $33 million of the county's $95 million in CARES Act allocation that was put aside to be spent on direct economic recovery efforts. In talking with many of our colleagues in other counties across the Commonwealth, and specifically in those limited counties that got direct CARES Act allocations, at this point, I believe Lancaster stands at the top of the list or shared first for the amount of resources the county has put back into the community and especially into the business community. So we're really grateful for the support of the county and also just the wonderful collaboration between the county, the chamber, and EDC. Speaking specifically to these two programs, the Small Business Recovery and Sustainability Fund had two rounds. Those rounds have now been completed. The first round was targeted to very small businesses in our community, businesses with 20 and fewer employees, defined as broadly as possible. So it included any business, including agriculture, including nonprofits who had 20 and fewer employees. And that round was conducted in June. We had a second round of funding that we put out in July, had similar guidelines. However, this time it also included funding for businesses that had up to 100 employees. So between the two rounds, we ended up distributing over $27 million in grants back into the local business community. Roughly 2,500 businesses applied over the course of those two rounds, and they sought well in excess of the money that we had available. In fact, we ended up reallocating additional money just because the need was so great. The piece here that is important to note is that we did have some nice response from the agricultural community, partly because the whole purpose of Recovery Lancaster was to get messages out as far and wide as we could to anyone in the county from any business, any industry segment that had a need. And we heard from businesses in all 60 jurisdictions in Lancaster County. And in the course of the 2 funding rounds that we had for the Recovery Fund, we had almost 80 farms apply for funding support through the program. As I mentioned, those funds are now depleted. We do not have any open rounds right now. There are certainly chances that there might be additional local funds available or state funds available coming out of CARES Act funding. That information, should it happen, would be could be found on the recoverylancaster.com website. And there's also a newsletter sign up there. So if you're interested in more information, you can still register to sign up to get those newsletters. The other piece of the programming that we did is the COVID-19 supply kit. And I am incredibly proud of this program because I believe it might be one of the only ones in the Commonwealth where we as a community came together and did bulk distribution of PPE, personal protective equipment, to businesses across the county. And again, by businesses, it includes every sector, including agriculture. The whole point of this program was to make it easily available for any business to get things like masks, hand sanitizers, wipes, and key components that businesses need and people need to operate safely and meet public health guidelines. We purchased bulk quantities of PPE through the county's purchasing department. They had already done extraordinary research in a very competitive and challenging environment to secure PPE. And then through a partnership with our team, a vendor, the J Group, a local business, some significant in-kind support, we set up a web portal where businesses could register to get a PPE kit shipped directly to their location. And at this point, we've distributed over 7,000 kits across the county, and we've covered over 100,000 employees with personal protective equipment. An important part of this program was, as we were putting it together, one of my calls was out to Scott and the Ag Council, as well as to our friends at Penn State Extension and to the Farmland Trust, because we felt it was important to make our agricultural community aware that the PPE was available to them, and recognizing that sometimes getting it onto farms or through distribution points might be easier than having it shipped directly. And so through the partnership with these entities, we were able to distribute, at least according to our count, in excess of 350 kits to our agricultural partners across the county. Just as a note, that program is actually still open because we are really pushing to get all of the PPE supplies that we have in stock out the door and into the community. There's still 2 weeks left when people can go online and register and get a PPE kit shipped directly to them. Again, that's recoverylancaster.com. The last piece I'll just wrap up with, Chris, before handing it back to you, is there is one new program that's available through recoverylancaster.com that if anyone wants to take advantage of, is a new partnership with the Lancaster Bar Association, where the Bar Association is offering up to an hour of free consultation for small businesses to get legal advice on any topic related to COVID. So that information, again, can be found online, and we're delighted and really heartened by the willingness of the Bar Association to put top legal talent in the community available to our small business community. And again, that's inclusive of ag. So with that, I will turn it back over and happy to answer any questions at the end of this segment. Thanks, Chris.
Great, thank you, Lisa. Always good to hear about some new programs. And as Lisa said, we will have a full list of those programs and websites at the end of this meeting, or on the website, the Lancaster County Ag Council website. So stay tuned for that. Up next would be Carla Snyder. She is the Penn State Extension Coordinator responsible for business development and marketing. She is a regional leader on this, and we will turn it over to Carla.
Hi, thank you very much for having me this afternoon. I appreciate the invitation to be here to share a little bit about what Extension has been able to provide our community throughout the pandemic. So overall, we've had over 200,000 registrations for our programs since April 1st. These are provided at no or reduced costs to the community. And they cover a broad range of topics for both general community members in the public as well as for agricultural producers. We really focused during the pandemic on assisting producers, aggregators, transporters, and direct retail businesses in everything from finance to food safety to food systems coordination. And if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen here. I have a slide to show you. Here we go. So one of the programs that we focused on with Extension was assisting those agricultural producers in applying for the Paycheck Protection Program. This was funds provided by the federal government through the CARES Act, and it enabled them to recoup some of their costs during COVID, primarily for payroll expenses, but also for some non-payroll expenses such as rent. So we were able to directly educate 2,433 plus businesses across 19 industries in Pennsylvania. And we'd like to think that because of this work, Pennsylvania was the 4th largest recipient of loans by amount in our entire country. So we're really happy that we were able to provide this type of assistance. We worked both one-on-one with agricultural producers, food businesses, and everyone in between, as well as provided a series of webinars. Those webinars are still up. The recordings are available if you need to apply for your grant funding through this program. So you can see there we provided, there is an average total of about $2.3 million according to our recipients that received these loans that participate in our programs. And in total overall, Pennsylvania received 100,073, 552 loans. So we're really proud of this work that we did. But in addition to that, we were also able to provide this one-on-one assistance as well as industry-wide assistance to the agricultural workforce, to steady our food supply chain, to reopen businesses safely. We did a Refining the Retail New Normal series, as well as applying for some of the federal and state assistance programs that were offered by PDA as well, like the Fresh Food Financing Initiative that was mentioned earlier. We were able to take this information quickly. We had educators on the ground that reached out to businesses directly providing translation services. So some of those underserved populations were able to apply for this and understand the application, understand what they were applying for in their own native language. Those folks that we were able to assist directly received $600,000 in loans out of this program. And we're pretty happy we were able to assist those underserved populations. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. We do have all of our programs available at extension.psu.edu. The majority of them are offered as recordings, so you can go back and view that data for any topic that might be of interest to you. And please do reach out to us with questions, and I'll be around till the end of the meeting for questions as well.
Very good. Thank you, Carla. Appreciate the update. And as Carla said, we will have a full page of those resources available at a future date. I will encourage everyone on the call again to submit your questions through the chat. And after this first section, we will review those questions and get some answers out for you. Up next, we will have Kimberly Stout, who is the Economic Development Specialist with our Small Business Administration. And Kimberly, are you there?
I am here, thank you.
Very
I'm
good.
also going to share my screen briefly. I do have a PowerPoint that you guys can feel free to share with the individuals that attended today, because the information, there's a lot of information, but you know, if you review this PowerPoint, you'll be able to go back and see it. So I am with the Small Business Administration. Let me just get back to my slideshow here. Thank you. All right, I'm with the Small Business Administration. I'm headquartered in King of Prussia. We cover the 40 eastern counties of Pennsylvania, and I specifically cover Lancaster County. So feel free to reach out to me at any time with additional questions. Typically, we're helping small businesses start, grow, and expand, but with COVID, we've been working with our Office of Disaster Assistance to get funding programs out to small businesses and agricultural farms and businesses through the pandemic. So we're focusing almost 99.9% of our time on the recovery efforts at this time. The information I'm sharing with you today is current as of today. I will put it out there that we are waiting for the federal government to make further decisions about the CARES Act to see if anything's going to change or if there's going to be additional programs that come out. So you can always reach out to me with further questions or follow us online to see what else may come out in the upcoming weeks. As an agricultural business, we do have resources available to you that you can reach out to get assistance as you run your farm and your agricultural business. We do have the Lancaster Lebanon SCORE chapter. There's a few mentors in there that have been focusing on our agricultural industries. They are free, they can mentor you, they can answer questions and assist you at any point in time. Also, Kutztown Small Business Development Center is the small business development center that covers Lancaster County. They've been working very closely with us as well on these programs so that they can assist you one-on-one if you're unable to reach me. The one program that was put into place pretty quickly after the pandemic hit was our Economic Injury Disaster Loan. This is the one time that the Small Business Administration works directly with our small businesses, and we did allow it to be included our agricultural and aquacultural businesses and farms. So most of the time we're working with only for-profit small businesses, but in this particular pandemic and with disasters, we do allow other programs. So you are eligible to look at this program as an option to apply for funding if you are interested. There is still money available as of now, and we'll get to the link that will lead you to the application if you're interested. The Economic Injury Disaster Loan is a loan. It is available to you for working capital, so that if you need additional funding to help you through this time period, you are able to apply. On the second bullet there is the link that will take you directly to the application. It's a couple of about 20 questions that you'll fill in about your particular business, your needs for funding, etc. If you are looking for under $25,000, there's no collateral. Above $25,000, there's a blanket UCC that's put onto your business assets. If you're offered the funding, there's no obligation to take it. So if you aren't sure if you're going to need funding, we don't know how much longer we're going to be in this situation, you can apply. If you're approved and you don't need it, you can decline it. There's absolutely no obligation to take this funding from the SBA. If you are if you are looking for like $200,000 or more, there will be personal guarantees that you'll have to make to this, but under $200,000, there are not personal guarantees. We're trying to make it as simple as possible. This is the first time that we've worked with a pandemic. It's usually for a physical disaster, like our fires that are currently happening in California. This is a loan. This is a loan that is over a 30-year term. For nonprofit organizations, it's a 2.75% interest rate. For for-profit organizations, it's the 3.75 interest rate. To apply, again, it's covid19relief.sba.gov/#/. It will take about 10-15 minutes. If you are interested in applying, I suggest that you take the time to make sure that you input your information incorrectly. We've had some hangups with the Office of Disaster Assistance when there's bank information put incorrectly, EIN numbers put incorrectly, Social Security numbers put incorrectly. So please take the time to double check your efforts and the information that you submit so that it can go through efficiently. If you have applied for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and you have been declined, there are reconsideration steps that you get a letter from the SBA Office of Disaster Assistance explaining why you may have been declined and what steps to submit the reconsideration. Please follow that instruction so that you can make sure that you get your application resubmitted correctly as well. Okay, so that was the information about the one program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Again, there is still funding available for it, and you're able to apply for that online. The other program that I'm going to cover quickly is just the Paycheck Protection Program forgiveness. This is the Paycheck Protection Program that was mentioned earlier. I'm so glad that Pennsylvania was able to get as many loans processed up through August 8th when the program was closed. We have many small businesses and farms and agricultural businesses and nonprofits and churches that were able to take this program and use it towards payroll for their small businesses or to pay their employees during this time. We currently are suggesting that if you applied for the Paycheck Protection Program and you have used the funding during your 8-week covered period or your 24, or you're currently using it during your 24-week period, you are looking at the forgiveness application. Please take all documents either from sba.gov or treasury.gov to become familiar. There's other online other websites, you might be getting misinformation. So please use these websites to assist you. Penn State has been helping. They're legitimate. The economic development, your chamber, they take their information off of these websites. So please just make sure that it's legitimate, usable information to move through this process. You've applied through the Paycheck Protection Program with a lending institution. Please check with them to see if they're taking forgiveness applications yet or not. And then, you'll work through their process as well. The application is pretty standard. If you use the loan funds, at least 60% of the funds towards payroll and the other 40% on the other allowable costs, you'll submit your forgiveness application, and then your lender will take about 60 days. They have up to 60 days to review that application and get it to SBA for forgiveness. You may submit your application process anytime during the 24 period if you've used your funds already. Again, this is just the process that is up on my slide, and you're welcome to share this with the group afterwards. You'll submit the application. It's self-verifying. They'll have documents that they'll want to see, the lender will want to see, just to prove you used the funds correctly and move forward with the process. Basically what you'll need is the calculator, which the application provides you information on how to do that, your loan documents, your business records you use for applying, and of course there is going to be some patience that we ask for because we've done so many of these loans. This is just additional information. You can take a look at it when the slides go out to you. Please follow sba.gov/coronavirus again for any information that's coming out. If you are looking for information specifically for Pennsylvania, we do have a Twitter handle, but you can also go to sba.gov/PA and request emails and updates from us so that you, again, have the most up-to-date information. There's a lot of things going back and forth about the Paycheck Protection Program at the federal level. Again, this information is accurate as of today. That could change. It changed a lot over the summer. So please make sure that you're looking at what's coming out and keeping on top of it. And I'm available to you at any time for any questions to assist you during this time. So I'll stop sharing with that, and we'll be available for any questions as well.
Very good. Thank you, Kim. A lot of great information there. And as Kim said, she'll be available for questions afterwards, as will all the speakers today. And we'll post their contact information, websites, and links later on the Ag Council's website. So as we look, again, encourage everyone to post your questions in the chat box, and we will try and cover a few of those now before we go to the next section of our presentation today. One of the questions that was raised, Jen Reed Harry from Penn Ag Industry has asked when, and I think this question is directed to you, Josh, mostly, but when will the second round of dairy assistance indemnity funds be open, and what will be the criteria? Josh?
Yeah, great question. I know everybody has been waiting for more detail on that. what I can tell you is, as has been stated out there, losses that were above the initial $1,500, will be paid with what is remaining from that 15 million that was allocated at a prorated rate after the September 30th deadline. So that obviously just passed. So I know inside the department they are working to get that information, out to recipients that would get those second round payments. So more to come on that. The point of contact for this program is Morgan Sheffield. I'm going to put name and email in the chat box. They would be the one to contact for more detail. You can also reach out to me and we can answer your individual questions on that as well.
Very good, thank you. Again, I encourage everyone to post any other questions in the chat box. Kim, I have a question for SBA, and it's not necessarily tied to COVID, but definitely, despite COVID, everyone's still living their life and needing to plan for the future. As one who participated with the SCORE program many years ago, I'm not sure if you touched on this directly or not, but does SCORE or SBA provide assistance in transition planning? Of course,
Yes.
Operators, maybe they're trying to see how they make it through next month, next year, but they are also planning for the future. And now is the time to take advantage of some of those opportunities and resources and start to plan for transition. So can you just talk real quickly about what SCORE or SBA offers for transition planning?
Sure, yes. We rely on our resource partners, the SCORE and the Small Business Development Centers, to really focus on that one-on-one assistance. SCORE Lancaster Lebanon has, I know they have over 75 mentors that assist small businesses, and they do focus on succession planning. So you can definitely reach out to them. You can go to score.org. Put in your zip code. It will most likely pull up the Lancaster Lebanon chapter for you, and you can request a mentor. Give them an idea of what you're looking for, and then they will put a mentor in touch with you, or multiple mentors, because many times they do like to co-mentor together, which gives you guys a great advantage because you're working with multiple experts. But they'll put together a time to sit down with you, go over what you're looking for, and then help strategize and put together a plan with you. And of course, it's free of cost. Because we help fund them, and they have other sources of funding, it's no cost to the business owner or to the farmer to work with them. I lost hearing.
It helps when you unmute. So
Okay.
very good.
Thought it was me.
No, thank you for those details. Again, encourage anyone who is in need of a business plan or that succession planning, great opportunity to contact SBA for that kind of assistance. My next question then, my next question for you, Lisa, what is next here in the county? What should we be thinking about or planning for as far as economic development and the COVID response?
That's a big question, Chris. A lot of what we're still in the process of doing is really just trying to digest what's happened to the economy over the last 6 months. We're really fortunate in a place like Lancaster because, as we often have said for many years, we do have such diverse industries in the community. And so at this point, we're hearing from a lot of folks who have navigated through a very difficult second quarter and seem to be rebounding well. And I would say particularly in our manufacturing and construction sectors, we're hearing a lot of positive growth and positive news. But that said, we still have somewhere between 16,000 to 18,000 continuing unemployment claims. So our unemployment rate is they haven't announced a new rate yet, but we estimate it to be between 6 and 7% at the end of September. And these are people in our community that have probably the least flexibility to navigate unemployment. So in the moment, we're paying close attention to industry sectors that are taking off and also mindful of those industry sectors like hospitality, retail, even in some of our senior living facilities that continue to be very heavily hit by the ongoing pandemic. The other piece, as we look, I think, to 2021, we are hearing a lot of optimism in the community from a range of people. So the hope is, as we navigate through the pandemic and as a vaccine is put into place, Lancaster County is very well positioned to rebuild the economy and get it back to the strong levels that we had before. So our outlook is cautiously optimistic, but mindful of those in the community that are being particularly hurt still and will be for some time. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, as clear as my question was, you've certainly captured a lot of the details and the information that I was hoping that you would. Great opportunity here in the county to take advantage of some of these resources we're talking about today, but also to really help make Lancaster strong well into the future. Scott Shealy, Director with the Ag Council, would like to ask a question or make a statement now.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to add that the Lancaster County Agriculture Council is in the midst of pulling together a report to Recovery Lancaster, and it will actually be presented tomorrow at a gathering at Cherry Crest Adventure Farm at 3:30. And I think what you'll find there, Chris, in connection to your question about what's next, some very specific findings as far as what's happened here in the county, but also some recommendations. One of the things that I think many of us in the ag and food system feel like is that we can't do anything because it's all done at the national level. And we are really taking the tack that many things can be done at the local level, and that we have some ideas about that. So we're not letting it loose until tomorrow at the end of the day, but look for that in terms of this white paper that will be coming about the effect of COVID on Lancaster County agriculture, lessons learned and recommendations for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, I encourage everyone to go to the website. There is a tremendous amount of opportunity this week as we celebrate our 6th annual Ag Week, Agricultural Week here in the county. Great opportunity to highlight all the successes, opportunities, even the struggles within Lancaster County's agricultural community and how we can best make the best out of that. As we continue in our discussion today, one of the topics has been conservation and those efforts to help make our farms more successful and compliant with not just state laws, but making them part of that whole process to help improve the natural resources here in the county. Who would have thought that in 2018, with the passage of the Pennsylvania Farm Bill, they would have been laying groundwork that would be unveiled during one of the most trying times. But that is what our next presenter, Kevin Lutz from the Lancaster County Conservation District, will be talking about. Kevin is the Assistant Program Manager for our Ag team, and he'll talk about a few of the new programs. There is a myriad of programs that are available for conservation efforts, both technical and financial resources that we provide. He's going to touch on a few of the ones that have been unveiled just this year, and we've gotten a little bit of traction, but need to get the word out so that folks are able to take advantage of these new programs and continue moving their operations forward. So I'll turn it over to Kevin now.
Okay, hi everyone. Everybody hear me okay?
Yep, you're good.
All right, yeah, like Chris said, these programs weren't necessarily being developed for COVID, but they have continued to be developed and unveiled in spite of COVID. So it does provide an opportunity, not just for their regular intent of getting conservation best management practices on the ground for farms, but they can also assist now for some farms, like dairy industry, things like that, that have been hit financially from COVID and other reasons, and have these funds available to still improve their operations, both for ag compliance, like Chris said, but also just for general maintenance and continued improvement on the farm. So I'll touch on 3 of the main programs. One of them is not new, but it is an important part for the Conservation Excellence Grant Program, which is the first program I'm going to talk about, and it is I would say the newest. So the Conservation Excellence Grant Program, or CEG, was part of the 2019 Pennsylvania Farm Bill, and it allocates at this point funding to Lancaster and York counties for a pilot program. Hopefully it will be extended into the rest of the state. But one thing you'll notice as I do go through these, Lancaster County has a flush of opportunities right now for ag conservation programs, and I can't think of a time when there's been more opportunities. Really, I would say the main thing is a lot of them have similarities in what they fund as far as practices and things like that, but there are certain nuances of how you're eligible, what fits best. So it really is something that you'd have to decide what works best for your operation and your situation for which one you'd want to pursue. So with the CEG funding, like I said, it is through the Pennsylvania Farm Bill from last year, and it is administered by the State Conservation Commission. The funds are through the Department of Agriculture, but the State Conservation Commission is administering it, and Lancaster and York counties are helping to work through the funds. Specifics with this program would be that if the projects are less than $25,000, it's fairly straightforward. It pays up 75% of the total project costs. For projects greater than $25,000, prevailing wage, because it is state funding, does come into play. So that has to get factored in with the cost of the project. Also, for projects greater than $25,000, a mixed funding source is part of that ranking process with deciding who gets funding. And by that I mean would be also using the REAP program, which I'll talk about next, as well as either the AgriLink loan program through the state or another private loan funding source to come up with the total amount, not to exceed 75% of the total project cost. So, and the max is $250,000 for the total project that could be allocated through the grant. Also, as with all these 3 projects or programs that I'll talk about, the Conservation District can assist with engineer and design work, but also private consultants can also do the engineering work for that, and funds are available to offset those costs too. As far as still with CEG, the district does administer the program, so you would apply through the Conservation District. The application can be found on our website, and we have 14 days to call the application administratively complete, and then 60 days for our board to approve moving forward on the project. And that at that point is when you know what is allocated to you as far as what was requested for total cost share. Also then for that program, again, the district would be assisting with making sure that when the project's completed, especially if we are the ones that are doing the design work for it. One big thing with this program would be that the project has to be pretty much ready to go. So this isn't something that you would sign up for that you don't really know exactly what you're going to propose. There has to be a good cost estimate for moving forward with the project. And it also has to, the BMPs that you're applying for also have to be in your current conservation plan or manure management plan. So that's something to keep in mind also when you're applying for the program. So with that, that's pretty much the framework for the CEG program. Next, I'll touch on the REAP program, because like I said, that is an important part of the CEG program as well, because they can be piggybacked together. And in fact, they're encouraged to be piggybacked together. So The REAP program is also a state program through the State Conservation Commission. The main difference with the REAP program is it is a tax credit or tax incentive program. So you are not getting direct payouts towards your project like the CEG program or all the other cost share programs that exist. This is purely through tax credits. So this program's existed since 2007. So it is not new like the other two programs that I'm talking about here. But like I said, it is a very important part of, I would say, both programs to really maximize the assistance that you can get towards it and to fully get the potential for what you can for the cost share. So for the REAP program, the state does allocate, and they have been for the past few years, $10 million in tax credits that are available for the use through this program. And depending on what practices you're going towards, it would be either 50 or 75% of the total cost. A couple unique things with this program is no-till and certain low disturbance manure corporation equipment is eligible for funding through this for the tax credits. That is unique. There's no other programs that we deal with that fund equipment. It also can fund the development of conservation or Ag E&S plans and manure management plans. So if you need that to be updated for applying for another program, this is also can help offset the cost for that if you're going through private source. Max that you can apply for REAP is $250,000 over a 7-year period. So that's something to keep in mind with that if you're going for equipment to sort of balance if you want to be able to use that for best management practices or just equipment, because the equipment can eat that total up a little bit. Again, current conservation plan or Ag E&S plan and manure management plans are a requirement of the program, as well as including if you have barnyard or ACA issues that impact water, both groundwater or surface water, that has to be part of the application. You can put in for that to get funding for it, but before tax credits could be released for any other things you're applying for, that would have to be addressed. The same as those plan developments. If you are putting in for plans that you have to have those plans for all acres in your operation. If you're putting in for development of that, those plans have to be completed before any other tax credits would be released. Now this program, the district is only really involved with doing the verification of this program to make sure that the plans do exist for the operations and that the barnyards are taken care of and the plans are up to date and current and are on schedule. So the district is available that we can be contacted to do this verification. Private consultants can also do that, but that's the main involvement that the Conservation District has for the REAP program. Otherwise, it goes through the State Conservation Commission and gets approved through them. Joel Semke is the contact with the State Conservation Commission. So for the third program that I'd like to touch on is, I would say, very new to the point where we're not really up and running fully with it yet, which is the Chesapeake Bay Agriculture Inspection Program Phase 2 grant. So you may or may not be aware, for the past few years, DEP has been doing general farm inspections for ag operations for making sure that they have the required plans that they need that I've mentioned here earlier. Lancaster County Conservation District has opted to assist with those inspections, so we've been helping with those, but we've only been doing the Phase 1 inspections at this point of verifying that the plans exist. Moving forward, starting this year, there's now Phase 2, where going back to those same farms and seeing that the plans are being implemented. So that's where this funding comes in. So this funding is through DEP, and it is to assist those ag operations that have had these Phase 1 or Phase 2 inspections for part of their compliance program, to assist them in implementing the plans that they have for their farms. So like I said, we don't have it fully up and running yet. There's some interest there, and we've only started these Phase 2 inspections. But with this program, it is a lower cap, so it's capped at $20,000 for the operation. for a project. So it's really looking at those smaller projects like roof gutters and downspouts, underground outlets, small waterways, things like that to get smaller things implemented to get your plans implemented. So again, it is run through the Conservation District and it is a pilot program. So Lancaster, again, is one of just a handful of counties that has this money available to them at this point. So, but the main thing with this funding is you have to have one of those phase 2 or phase 1 inspections, or you'll be having one within the next year. So those are the main 3 programs that I wanted to touch on, but there are additional programs, which I believe you can see on the slide right now, a brochure that was just developed by the district. There are other opportunities. The Exelon grant program is one we've had for a couple of years here at the district. It is actually through the Exelon company, so it is unique in that it is a private funding source. So if there's any aversion there to using public tax funds for
Is that still shown?
It just went down, Chris. Anyway, it is private funding through the Exelon, so that is unique. And that's something we have had for a couple of years here. And then, of course, some of the general standbys, NRCS's EQIP program is available, as well as the CREP program. So those are two federally funded programs that have opportunities as well. With that, I think I might have caught up my time here, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that people may have.
Very good. Thank you, Kevin. As Kevin said, he touched on 3 of the either new programs or revised programs. On the screen, again, as he said, there are a list of a few other programs, but there really is just an endless list of financial or technical service provider assistance out there. We'll share a website a little bit later on, but I'll share it now. PAGrows.gov has a series of different grants, loans, details for grants, loans, and variety of resources. Also, on the second page of this document, there is the district's website that has a list of both state, federal programs that we're involved in. The one program I will really highlight that Kevin touched on in all 3 of the projects or programs that are shared. It all starts with a conservation plan, and they're in its 5th or 6th year now. The state has been funding plan writing, whether it's your Ag E&S or manure management plan, both required by state law. There are funds available to help underwrite those that task, that responsibility. So whether it is whether or not you have your plan, or you know someone who needs assistance writing a plan, we just encourage them to go to their technical service provider. Any of the private sector plan writers are aware of this program, and they will be able to plug you right in. Same with the REAP and CEG. The private sector is well aware of all the programs, the equipment dealers, the plan writers. They're very familiar with these programs. They'd be very glad to help you and plug you in a program that really will meet your needs. So the best thing you can do is get out and start asking questions. As I said before, we'll have resources available with links to the different sites. To stay on track with our time, we'll move to the next section, and then at the end, we'll open it up for questions for any of our speakers that we've had today. But next up, we wanted to just allow the viewers of the webinar today to be thinking about that year-end planning, and especially considering how unusual this year has been. We have two different sector representatives today. We have Mike Peachy, who is a principal at Acuity Advisors, who will talk about year-end planning, as well as Dale Hershey, vice president at Univest Bank. And I believe we'll have Mike speak first, and then turn it over to Dale, and then we'll take questions from everyone. So with that, Mike.
Sure. Thank you, Chris, and nice job to the planning committee for this Ag Week to put together this program. Also, just a broader shout out to the entire Lancaster County community. in terms of how partnering together, I think, has really shown the amazing culture that Lancaster has in how to pull together in a great unified response to this very challenging virus. And specifically the way EDC and the chamber, along with the county and county commissioners, the business community, the nonprofit community, and then different sectors like the ag sector have just partnered together in a really effective way. And I think it's a testament to the, what's great about Lancaster, if it's okay to brag us up a little bit. But anyway, to the topic at hand, I think the surprising thing actually is because of a lot of these programs, year-end planning and specifically year-end tax planning is going to be important to look at. And so for any producers on the call or anyone who, producers who might be looking at this through the recording, I would really recommend talking with your CPA or your tax accountant regarding your 2020 tax situation, because many of these programs are taxable. And an example of that would be the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, otherwise known as CFAP. And there's 2 rounds to this. The first round was roughly in June is when funds were received. And now just a week ago, the second round was opened up and checks are coming in for that as well. Those 2 rounds of CFAP payments are pretty significant across many of the agricultural sectors. And so that in conjunction with many of the other programs that are out there, surprisingly might put you into a taxable income situation for the year, which if you would have asked me in March or April if that could be the case, I don't think a lot of people would have taken that bet. But considering where we are today, with some rebounding of commodity prices, not complete replacement, but some, in addition to all of these programs, it really warrants a look at your tax situation so you don't get surprised and so you don't leave dollars on the table that are really, really going to be needed heading into next year. So with that, I'll just pass off to Dale to talk. Dale and I were talking a little bit earlier about liquidity, and maybe Dale, you want to touch base on that or other thoughts as well.
Sure, Mike. Hey, thanks for that. I would echo a little bit what Mike said. Thanks to the Ag Council for putting this week together. It's kind of a nice way of pulling the community together, and some times when we're kind of struggling here a little bit with the whole unusual year. It's been different. It's been very different. And if I would have been sitting in this spot back in January, I'd never imagined we are where we are with these different programs that have emerged so quickly in our industry. Especially, I would echo what Mike said with that CFAP program. That's been a real shot in the arm for our dairy farmers. It's been something that these guys have been able to take advantage of, and like Mike said, they're going to have to be prepared that there is tax consequences that come along with that. And the biggest thing, I guess, that I would caution our listeners, to is the fact that to make sure you have liquidity and cash available as we get to the end of the year and get into tax season, because I'm afraid guys may be in for some surprises. I think they could end up realizing they had a far better year than they thought they were going to have. When you factor in some of these programs that are out there, these are things that there's going to be a time when they're going to show up on the tax returns, and we're going to need to account for them. So the biggest thing is, we've said this in banking for years, cash is king. You've got to be prepared that you have liquidity when it comes to the tax season. Many times farmers are notorious for typically, if they have extra cash, they want to pay ahead, they want to pay down debt, and it's honorable. I understand that, but at the same time, you need to have cash available to pay your tax bill, to pay the real estate taxes, to pay those unforeseen expenses that come down your way, especially in a time like we've dealt with here with this with the coronavirus. Uh, it the guys that have been successful through this are some of the guys that were prepared, that they had cash available, whether it be through cash on hand, or whether it be through lines of credit. You need to be prepared that you, things are things never go the way we expect them to. There's breakdowns, there's things that come your way. Nobody ever thought that the coronavirus was going to be hanging on as long as it has. Everybody thought it was going to be a couple week event, and here we are, whatever it is now, 9 months later, and we're still in the middle of it. So that being said, hang on to cash. You need to have liquidity available. And that's probably one of my biggest concerns with farmers at times, is they just keep themselves too tight from a cash perspective. And so with that, Mike, I'll turn it back to you and follow up on anything you have to say.
Sure. Yeah, I'll piggyback on that liquidity emphasis from Dale. And, I think in the short term, the CFAP funds and the PPP did what they were designed to do, and that was to provide income replacement for the short term, both for replacing lower commodity prices and also helping to cover payroll costs. So short term, they did what they were supposed to do. And I think everyone is hoping for a robust and complete recovery heading into 2021. But we're in uncharted territory here. And so, domestically and globally, who knows what the demand is going to be in heading into 2021. And to Dale's point, liquidity will carry the day if we have any extended period of economic softening. And I would expect to continue to see a lot of volatility. And some of that might be, again, short-term volatility to the extent that there's any additional short-term supply and distribution chain disruptions that can create some short-term volatility that liquidity can really help weather the storm, as well as longer-term volatility, perhaps, as we navigate and transition through this temporary kind of new normal period of time that we don't really know how long it's all going to last. So yeah, cash is king, and I just want to emphasize that as well from a financial point of view. The other thing that, in terms of opportunities, and I think Dale could speak to this as well, is we are at the best time ever to be locking in long-term interest rates. And to the extent that there's any listeners that are sitting on a lot of variable rates right now in their loans, this is as good a time as any that I can certainly remember in 30 years to lock in long-term rates. And there's a lot of good long-term rates out there in 5, 7, 10, and even some 15-year money to really take interest rate risk off the table. And Dale, you can speak to that more if you'd like, but I would not hesitate to take a look at that for yourself.
Yeah, I would echo what Mike said on that. The interest rates, I mean, we're dumbfounded by where things have gone. We never expected to see the interest rates go where they've gone. I think everybody, that tries to look in their crystal ball, with where the economics of this country would be going, back probably a year or two ago, wouldn't have thought that we were going to see these kinds of interest rates. And the prediction is, and I'm not an economist, but everybody's telling us we could see it for a little here. You know, I don't think it's anything that we see things changing anytime in the near future. But these interest rates are unprecedented, and it's, guys need to take advantage of that. When you can lock in money, you know, for where we are today, it really, I would really encourage guys to do it. I think there's a piece of me says, in spite of the virus, we almost have a little bit of a perfect storm from a standpoint that we've been very fortunate with crops. The guys I'm talking to right now, it seems like guys have had a bumper crop. The milk price has fortunately been propped up a little bit by some of the programs that are out there, which when you put them in you know, tandem with what the milk price is, that ends up being a decent year. If you look at some of the plain community, the tobacco is going to have a good year. Produce has had a good year. We have a lot to be thankful for in spite of all the things that are going on around us. The farmers and that, I think that takes us back to the original point that Mike made, is going to get us back to a point where we might have a tax issue to deal with. Guys can be very fortunate that we didn't end up with a drought or, you know, a poor crop with what all we've been dealing with this year. Fortunately, we've been very blessed in this community that that things have turned out the way they have.
Dale and Mike, thank you again for sharing those details, and I just want to underscore, Dale, appreciate your call to be thankful. There is an awful lot that we have to be thankful for, and as we have seen at the Conservation District, many people are taking advantage of the low interest loans, and so whether it is consolidating debt or trying to plan for expansion, really now is the time. Many others are taking advantage of these low interest rates, and it ultimately will help to stabilize or support a growing economy throughout Lancaster County. I know many businesses on this call, many businesses throughout the county have taken advantage of the COVID crisis. Who would have thought that we'd be still facing unanswered questions 6-7 months into this process, but many have turned it around and are using it to evaluate how to continue either growing your operation, diversifying your operation. It's been a real time of reflection and strategic planning. And so whether you are, whatever your future plans are, just encourage you, make the best of this opportunity. Take advantage of the resources that are available. They are plenty. You just need to start asking those questions. And questions, we do have a few questions. There are a few in the chat that we're going to cover, but I think I'm going to turn one back to Dale and Mike before we leave them. You mentioned about surprises during the tax season. I don't think any of the stimulus checks given out to individuals throughout the county will change your tax status, but maybe for your employees, there could be a real impact, especially if they haven't planned for having to pay tax on those checks. And so I guess I'll put the question back to either of you. Is there any determination of whether the stimulus funds that have been received this year will be taxed as income, taxed as income?
Yeah, the stimulus checks, which were $1,200 per person, and then some additional amounts per child, those are not taxable. So good news there in terms of the non-taxability of those stimulus funds. But the other farmer-related programs, such as the CFAP, which is the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, and the funds that, for example, the CFAP came through the FSA office, those are taxable. The other thing I would just mention is that the PPP funds, and I think the SBA and the lending community did a phenomenal job of getting funds out in a very short period of time. The way Congress wrote that was that the income, when it's forgiven, is not taxable. However, they were a little sloppy in their writing, if I may say that, because they did not specifically state that the expenses associated with those PPP funds are to be deductible. And the IRS came out in early May with a notice stating that even though the income from forgiveness is tax exempt, the expenses associated with the PPP funds are not deductible. And the IRS, that's nothing new. That's always been the position. And so they are going off of precedent, but that may be a real surprise for a lot of taxpayers because the political messaging was certainly much different than that. And so again, it's important to get with your accountant and understand the details of these programs so that you can have some planning. First of all, be knowledgeable, and then second of all, have some specific planning tailored to your individual circumstances.
Great, thanks, Mike, for that answer. We do have a few questions over in the chat box, and be asking Kevin a question in just a second. I do want to draw everyone's attention to that chat box. If you have another question for any of our speakers today, please put it in the chat box. We'll be sure to cover it here in just a minute. But it also helps for this the recording so that anyone who views this webinar later can have that same information. And so before I ask Kevin the question, wanted to highlight Stephanie Shirk from the Lancaster office of Penn State Extension has put a link to all of their webinars, informational trainings, really a wealth of resources there available to anyone. Ag, business, ag-related, business-related, home and life, just everything there. Great resource from Penn State Extension. So I want to encourage everyone, draw everyone's attention to that website and so that you can find that information. The question I will bring back to Kevin is from Jen Reed Harry at Penn Ag. In your opinion, given the current environment, are farmers' attitudes and interest in the programs you listed the same now, less or more than 1 year ago? Kevin?
I would say overall, it's pretty similar to a year ago. I'm not seeing what I would say as more interest, but other than maybe a little bit of hesitation from some dairies that just have the uncertainty to deal with of where they might be in a year from now, where they would want to invest in some of these different types of practices. I would say overall, it's pretty similar. I haven't seen a huge impact from COVID in that people are totally shying away from wanting to do conservation practices. I mean, we're still getting plenty of interest. I know NRCS is getting plenty of interest for their EQIP program. So I would say it's pretty similar to where it was this time last year.
Great, thanks for that, Kevin. What I would say, and I agree with him, the interest has remained pretty steady throughout the COVID experience. Unfortunately, COVID has added several layers to just a normally busy day in a farmer's life, and so on top of having to make sure you're moving your operation forward, you're paying your bills, you're meeting the regulations, and now you have to deal with all those extra layers of COVID responsibilities. So in light of that, I think it's pretty remarkable that the average farmer's attention to maintaining compliance with the state laws is pretty impressive. And it really underscores their interest, their desire to do what's right. We just need to continue offering that support and assistance so they can achieve those goals and objectives. So again, just underscore what Kevin said, the interest has remained steady, but in light of everything else going on, I think it's actually increased. Really have had a great response from the county. And as Kevin underscored in his presentation, the funds, the assistance available now, not just for COVID, but for all conservation practices, is greater now than we've ever had before. The only thing that will increase that is if we can spend the money, if we can get those practices on the ground and show that there is a continued need and demand for assistance. So encourage everyone on this call, whether you need the assistance or not, let others know that there are COVID-related, conservation-related, business-related resources that are available, and we'll provide the links at the end of this call. Scott, are there any other questions in the chat?
Chris, there's no other questions on the chat, but Commissioner DiAgostino had to sign off, and he left this message to share. He said the commissioners were glad to support ag, get through all this with providing CARES Act funding through the Chamber and EDC recovery plan. Please thank everyone for what they are doing to help ag get through this, and wish everyone well going forward. That's from Commissioner DiAgostino.
Great support from our county level. I'll open it to any other questions before we close out our session today. While we're waiting to see if anyone raises a question, I want to again thank our sponsors today for this programming. We have it was Flint Rock Farms up in the Brickerville area, as well as Atlantic Farm Credit. We want to thank them for their sponsorship today. Again, this is one event of many this week, honoring and celebrating agriculture throughout the county. For more details and information, you can hear posted on the screen now is the Lancaster County Council, Agricultural Council. You can see their website. It's LancasterAgCouncil.com. You can go there for all of the resources that we've discussed today, as well as more details about Ag Week and all things that are important to the ag community. Any final questions before we sign off?
There's just one more statement to build on what you said. We have several more events coming up in the course of the week. Two that you might want to take a look at would be on Wednesday at noontime. We sort of have the flip side of this program, which is what can we do? What are the recommendations? We have a really nice group of subject matter experts and also some people from the industry to talk about what happened and where do we go from here. And then on a lighter note, on Wednesday evening at 6:30, many of you have attended Denim and Pearls, which is traditionally a part of our Ag Week festivities. We had to go to a virtual event, but we have a very nice program. Two local artists are going to be performing online. We have a PowerPoint of some slides of past events, and if you watch that, you can probably pick your face out if you've been there before. Would really encourage you to sign up for those. The way you do that is you send an email to info@lancasteragcouncil.com, and we'll send you a link back where you can get onto it. But again, serious stuff at noontime on Wednesday, not so serious stuff, but celebratory on Wednesday evening. Hope you're able to join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Any final questions for our panelists today? If not, I again want to thank our panelists, each one of them an expert in their field. They've done a great job answering those questions. We will have their contact information, their websites and links available on the Ag Council website. I encourage you to reach out to them, share that information. Please take advantage of the resources that were discussed today, as well as the others on their websites. Really a great opportunity to help move Lancaster County forward. I also want to thank the Ag Council for their support of Ag Week. Thank Scott Shealy and Shelley Dayhoff for helping to coordinate the different events throughout this week. Really a great opportunity to showcase the good things going on throughout the county. With that, anything final, Scott? Okay. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. This information will be posted on the website and available for future viewing. Please share it with those who weren't here and continue to help make Lancaster County agriculture as strong as it can be. Thank you and have a great day.